I'm Ruth, I'm the President of Kent Union, and I'm here with Owen Lyons, who is the Secretary of the UCU University of Kent branch. So we're here today to talk about the UCU Strike Action that is coming to our campus in next week. So I've got a couple of questions for Owen, and these have been sent in from students and are also from Kent Union. So actually, I'm just going to first let Owen give you the opportunity to explain the situation from UCU's perspective.
UCU is fighting to defend academic and professional services staff's pensions. The employers had been negotiating with UCU over the last few months about very negative changes to the pension scheme, changing it from a scheme which defines the benefits, guarantees what pension we get, to one where all the risk is taken by the individual member of staff. So the union's been negotiating, the employers have nonetheless forced the changes through, and so UCU has called industrial action to try and get the employers' representatives back to the negotiating table to reach a deal which works for everybody.
So USS are the people that provide that pension, and they have called this change a necessary step. What does UCU think of this?
UCU disputes that. Partly it comes down to the technical provisions, how you do the accounting, how you value the pension. But one of the most fundamental points is they value the pension as if all the employers were suddenly to go bust. Is there enough money in the pot to pay the pensions? But it's not remotely realistic to say all the universities in the scheme are going to go bust tomorrow. So whether or not there's enough money in the pot today isn't the point. The point is the scheme sustainable over the long term? And UCU believes it certainly is, and its own actuaries have written their reports on saying how good health they believe the scheme is in, and actually you can argue the scheme would be in surplus if you didn't make such negative assumptions.
Lots of the students we've heard from so far are really sympathetic to lecturers' concerns. However, they're also really concerned about how the action will affect them personally. Why have UCU chosen to take industrial action that affects students, given that the industrial action could see students lose up to 15% of the contact time that they're paying for? Has UCU taken students into consideration?
Absolutely. It's always a really difficult decision to take industrial action. Anybody in the public sector usually does the job because they love the job, they love supporting, helping the people that they work with. Junior doctors came under a lot of pressure when they were striking about their conditions because their students, were patients in hospitals. Industrial action is the last resort. It's the final weapon that any employee has if they're unhappy with their employer. I would argue, and various legal bodies would argue, it's a human right. We're allowed to take this action, but we take it if we're sure that we need to, that we've exhausted all our other options, and it's still possible that this industrial action won't happen. There have been various disputes called in the past. When negotiations reopen, action gets suspended. There is still time for the employers to get back to the table and this strike not to happen. But we're preparing, in case it does happen, to make sure that we cause as much disruption as possible, because that's our leverage. We would expect students to be unhappy, students to complain, but we would ask that they direct that towards the Vice Chancellor, towards the employers, to say, get back to the table, get this settled, and sort things out.
So we've heard from the Kent Graduate School Association. They are students who are postgraduates, so they're both studying, and some of them are also academic staff teaching at the university. They've said they 100% support lecturers in their strike, and the university should assume responsibility for this. We want to focus, KGSA want to focus, on supporting lecturers in any way they can, rather than having a divide or buying into an us versus them narrative. So, Owen, what do you think is the future for academia if these pensions cuts go ahead, and how would that impact students of the future?
We represent postgraduate students who teach. Many of them are joining and are looking for our support. And these are the academics of the future. This is creating the university of the future. And we believe this dispute is about far more than protecting our pensions, but it's about protecting what universities are like. Because if this kind of change goes through, moving into academia will become so much less attractive. One of the things that always used to go into it was the pay in universities wasn't great, but you had a good pension scheme, you had a good quality of life, it was a good place to work. The workload, the student numbers, the expectations on staff have gone up enormously. Pay has been going down in real terms, and now there's this attack on pensions. And the future generation of academics will be coming through massive student debt. UCU opposes tuition fees, believes that students should be supported through a business education tax. That's UCU's national policy. Shouldn't be racking up all that debt. And then also, once they do get employed, should be employed on decent contracts. But so many people are employed on 0 hours contracts, casual contracts, fixed-term contracts. So they're going into the profession with massive debt, massive insecurity. Many can't even afford to pay into the pension. And so this is about protecting what universities look like in future, and therefore what future students' experiences might be like.
So how do you think UCU and Kent Union, who obviously we represent all students at Kent and UCU represent all staff at Kent that are members, could work together to support postgraduate students who are both academic staff and students?
The concerns of those postgraduate students are not the same as those of undergraduate students. They've got different interests, different requirements. So it's really important that in our representative structures, they're represented. UCU has got membership offers, is working on hardship funds, and we would like to continue to work with Kent Union to look at what are those postgraduate students saying to both of us, and which of us can help, or how can we jointly help achieve those things.
Hourly paid lecturers are often postgraduate students who have to teach to earn enough money to continue studying. HPLs are going to have to make a choice as to whether they can afford to go on strike. It's a high price for taking a stand. So what can UCU do to support those students and staff members?
UCU nationally is running a hardship fund for any member who takes strike action and is put into financial hardship from the pay that they lose. The branch locally has agreed to use some of its branch funds to top up that hardship fund, and hourly paid lecturers are certainly entitled to apply. And if, for example, they're teaching on one day, their pay is wrapped up in a multiplier which also pays for admin marking, which is done on different days, UCU is saying they can claim for hardship on each day of the strike, not just the days that they were due to teach, so that they can claim the maximum amount from the hardship fund and redress as much as possible what they're losing. But all members of staff who take part in industrial action will be losing pay, and some of my permanent full-time colleagues will be losing £2,000, £3,000, maybe even £4,000 if they strike for all 14 days. So we are making a major sacrifice because it's that important. The proposals to the pension scheme could cost people £10,000 a year for, say, 20 years of retirement. This is an enormous change, and some of us will therefore take a major hit to try and prevent that change taking place.
The last question is a question from a student. So is there something that we as students can do to support the staff who would like to take action, but also try to continue our lectures and seminars? How should we support staff?
Staff find it fantastic when they talk to students, they tell them they're taking action, and the students turn around and say, we understand, we're supportive. Some of my colleagues really don't want to take a strike action because they're concerned the students don't understand, that the students want the lecture to go ahead. So where a staff member gets a supportive reaction from students, that makes a really big difference to them. Staff members will direct students to what resources, what you can be working on, reading the textbooks, material you can use. When we're back on non-strike days, people obviously will come and talk to us about things. And the university will have to make arrangements, will have to figure out ways to make sure students aren't disadvantaged. The sooner the dispute gets settled, though, the less there is to be fixed.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate talking to you, and hopefully students will be able to continue to send in questions that we'll continue to address to you during this strike action. Thanks very much.